and welcome to Habit Nerd, a podcast show that knows that few things can have a more powerful impact on your life than improving your daily systems, habits, and mindset. I'm your host, Dr. Bree Hurn, a multi-passionate researcher, lecturer, speaker, and coach. Once a perfectionist who was always busy but not necessarily effective, I overcame illness and burnout and am now obsessed with sharing the science and systems for working with efficiency and habits for abundant health in your mind and your body. Each week, my guests and I share stories and lessons backed by research. So let's buckle up and dive straight into today's empowering conversation. Well, Habit Nerds, today I'm lucky to be joined by Shane Gilchrist. Now, Shane is a highly experienced personal trainer and co-owner of 3E Fitness in Melbourne. 3E Fitness run group fitness classes as well as small group and one-on-one personal training sessions and specialise in supporting youth athletes. Shane has a keen interest and a strong knowledge base in nutrition and believes in a healthy, balanced and sustainable lifestyle. When Shane isn't planning or facilitating fitness sessions at 3E, he coaches and manages girls' AFL teams in both the independent girls' school sector and at the local junior level. When he's not working, Shane enjoys spending active family time with his wife and his 2 daughters, watching sports, AFL and NFL, and spending time with his friends. All right, so Shane Gilchrist from 3E Fitness, thanks so much for joining us.
No worries, Breezer. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so because you've called me Breezer in the first line, I better declare full disclosure. Shane is actually one of the 2 trainers at the gym that I attend. So him and his amazing wife, Lauren, own 3E Fitness. So this is you may not have heard me referred to as Breezer before. That is a gym-specific nickname. So anyway, now we've declared our cards. So thanks so much for being here, Shane. Now, a first question that I start off all my guests with: what is a habit that serves you, that helps you show up as the person that you'd like to be in the world?
Okay, yeah. So I had a bit of, in regards to habits, there's a few ways you look at habits. There's daily habits, and there's other habits that kind of mold your life. For me, and the way I live my life and around my family is more my habit that I like to, I guess, stay true to daily, weekly, is more around gratitude. So gratitude is something that I think is really important, especially in a family aspect, because it ensures that you stay grateful for what you have. And for me, obviously, as you just introduced me, being part of a gym or running a gym, I'm always grateful for my health, because we see so many people coming to the gym that have issues or are coming back from something or whatever it might be. So you hear all these stories. So I'm always grateful for my own health, because I know it can change, but running a gym at least helps me minimize potential things popping up.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I'm grateful for the health that I have, because then I can have some quality time with my kids. We're obviously a very active family. I'm sure we'll talk about it. My girls are very active, and my health enables me to then be active with them. So going for a run with Maddie, my daughter, or going for a kick of the footy, things like that. So that's probably, I know it's probably a little bit left field, but gratitude is more the habit that I think is really important, or it is to me anyway.
Yeah, it's a great one. So we understand habits to be like a settled tendency. So I would imagine that that's like an umbrella that you put across all aspects of your life. So not just health, but, gratitude for the relationships with, with your wife and your girls and all your friendships and all of the other things as well. Habits become automatic. So they become settled when we have a system in place that supports them. So if it is gratitude, that's your habit, what are the systems that help you be grateful, and maintain that attitude of gratitude?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you've got to keep it front of mind with gratitude. And I guess, and this might be a little bit deep, but as you get a little bit older, you become a little bit wiser, and your health becomes more and more important, especially when your parents get a little bit older and things like that. It becomes more front of mind. So I'm really big on, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in more detail as well, but on routine, and that's also routine for my girls as well, and I'm massive on family, which you can probably work out already. So yeah, get into routine with that gratitude and the habits around that gratitude. So going for a run, or maybe talking about, the last sports event or whatever it might be, school, whatever it might be. It's just creating a real routine around that. And I guess the subject heading is all around gratitude. Okay, well, let's be grateful that you ran last week, or that you get another opportunity next year, or you didn't have a great game, but you get another opportunity next week, and things like that. So that's kind of our outlook, or my outlook that I have around that, always look forward. And yeah, so it's always about, okay, well, let's be grateful for what we just did. But it might not have been your best performance, but there's always next week, or there's always the next time. So yeah, but getting back to what I was saying before, more around the routine around that, around those habits. So yeah.
So that's interesting. So the gratitude is almost in those examples you just gave, is like that, what can we gain out of this experience, even if it wasn't the ideal outcome? There's some piece of that to be grateful for in there, or some learning to gain
100%.
from it. And so do you struggle, as someone who uses gratitude as like a mindful habit or a mindful practice, to come up with things to be grateful for when they're the same all the time? So if you wanted to, for example, be somebody who was mindful about, the end of the day, or when you get out of bed, or when you have a shower, or when you go for a walk, or whatever it is, to focus on gratitude, does it ever get old and repetitive and therefore lose its meaning for you?
Yeah, it's a good one as well, Bree. It can, but I don't know. I've always had the mindset of what's next. It doesn't have to be a massive goal either. I mean, clearly those daily habits are really important, because if you didn't have habits, then you're not going to get to where you want to get to anyway, with certain things. But for me, I always try to break things down as well. Like, you don't need this massive goal front of mind all the time. Break it down into smaller goals, and a lot of those smaller goals will actually help you get to. There's a saying, a lot of small steps get you to where you need to go. More than one big step straight away. So yeah, it can, but you've always got to have that reason, I guess, the reason why you're doing a certain thing, and make sure that repetition is really important. Repetition is really important.
I think you raise, like, that's a really important point around the science of anybody being able to maintain anything that's positive for them. And so if it's gratitude, what we're talking about is, it only becomes automatic when you do it enough that it feels strange if you don't do it. Like, you sort of, it would be unusual if you didn't kind of get to the end of an experience or the end of a day and feel some sense of gratitude. But I also think in your answer, I can infer that you're grateful for the big things. Like, you started off saying, I'm grateful for my health, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for being well enough to be able to, kick a footy with my girls, etc. But I think the way you've just described breaking things down into the small steps, maybe it's being grateful for what went well in a certain experience. So that's kind of that micro level and that macro level, that you sort of the big things. So you've answered my question in that's why it doesn't get repetitive, because you're grateful for the small incremental things, but you're also always, showing gratitude for the big things. There's that Jim Quick quote, I'll sound like a broken record, but what you appreciate. So I assume by training your brain to look for the good, you'll see more good. In the same way as if you train your brain to look for what's not going so well, then more of that will, come to the fore.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I guess if I'm talking about achieving a goal, then if the goal's big enough, right, and it's not going to be achieved tomorrow. So you got to, like I said before, you got to put all these things in place to actually get to that end goal. But if we're talking about gratitude, it's okay. Well, we've got the opportunity to go out and do this today.
Absolutely.
It's going to make you better. But at least, number one, when you finish whatever you've done, like, be grateful you actually had the opportunity to do that. Because not everyone gets the opportunity to do that.
No, that's true. That's true.
Depending on what your goal is, of course. I'm not saying everyone has to do what I'm talking about. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe something that happens to me as I've got a bit older, but I'm just really, really grateful for the little things.
Mm,
I try not to get too caught up, although it's hard sometimes,
yeah.
on the insignificant things. Um, you know, be grateful for what you got around you, you know.
This is a bit of a left of field question, but it's something I think really relevant to you, and it's how do you make sure that gratitude doesn't become toxic positivity? So, for example, one of your kids has done something in sport. They've thought that they were going to win a race and they didn't. They came third or fourth and they're disappointed. They
Yep.
didn't have a good day, whatever it was. It's highly unlikely this would happen to one of your girls, Shane, but just in case. I mean, it happens to all,
Not at all, not at all. Yeah.
Anyway, but my point is, how do you balance that? Like, look what we can learn from it. You know, you're get another go next week or next year at this time, or imagine what we can learn from it or whatever. How do you balance that with it being okay to say, yeah, I'm actually disappointed, like things didn't go my way, and that's all right as well?
Yeah, nah, exactly. It's another great one. I think, and this might sound boring, but my message, and if we're talking about my family still and my girls, it's just do your best.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean you're always going to have a great day.
Mm.
I mean, you're going to have a great day. You know, if I'm talking about Maddie and her running, it might be a really strong headwind. You know, and she doesn't get the time she wants to get.
Yeah.
As long as you walk off with whatever you're doing in life and you've done your best, then what else is there? Like, but when I say do your best, you've actually got to do your best.
Yeah. Okay.
Your best is 100% of effort. You know,
Yeah.
is
Right.
going out there, and I couldn't have done any more.
Mm.
Talking about school terms, I couldn't have studied anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out the way you want it to work out. That's life.
Mm-hmm.
And life's not perfect. But as long as you do your best, then everything apart from that is controllable. So you can say, okay, well, next week might not be windy in Maddie's race. So let's continue to train. Let's continue to do the things that actually put you in this position.
Mm-hmm.
Next week, you might get a tailwind, you know, and it might mean that you do a much better time.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an example. Like, that hasn't happened. But yeah, just if you continue to focus on just doing your best, and if you speak to my kids, they'll say, what does dad say? I said, oh, just do your best, you know. And I don't think you can go into that negative mindset if you continue to preach that.
Mm.
But yeah, I do get back to that. Your best has to be your best. Like,
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I think we all owe that to ourselves.
Yeah, I agree.
Life, like, because everyone can do their best.
Yes, yeah.
You don't have to be, a Michael Jordan in basketball, you know. But as long as you go and do your best, then that's all you can ever ask yourself.
Yeah.
I think do that, then it's okay to be disappointed, but you move on pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that's really important to acknowledge that we can hold two things at once. We can be disappointed and not feel great, or think that, not only in sporting endeavors, but anything, like, oh, that didn't turn out the way I wanted, I didn't perform as well, or I wasn't as effective in that. But yes, tomorrow's a new day, but it's okay to feel like I'm in the trenches a little bit today. And tomorrow I wake up and things might look better and I get another go. So I think we can hold those two things together, can't we? Yeah. And I think that's important to tell anyone who has a habit of gratitude, because that's what we're talking about here, is that it's actually not, look how lucky you are. Don't complain, everything's amazing. Because sometimes you don't feel well, or sometimes things happen or whatever. And that's okay too. But it's just, but I like that you kind of got that underlying foundation of gratitude as a habit.
And as you said then, like, it's okay to be disappointed, because when you're disappointed, it actually shows you care. So that's the way I look at things. Well, if you're going to walk away from something and it didn't quite work out, but you're disappointed, well, that's good in a way, because it shows you care.
Yeah.
As long as that's something you can work on for next time, then that's great, because you're going to then go and put the tools in place, or put the things in place to actually achieve it next time.
That's a great reframe.
If you walk away and, oh, well, or doesn't matter, well, it probably doesn't mean enough to you if that's the case.
Yeah, that's a really helpful reframe. Yeah, I like that. I've heard that something similar, in that if you're really nervous before you do something, that's good too, because it means that it's important. It means that, you know, you care enough about it and that your body's going to give you enough adrenaline to be able to perform in the way that it needs to. So yeah, I think that's really helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
Oh, good on you, Shane. Fantastic. All right. Is there a habit that you currently have that you feel isn't aligned with the person you're aiming to be?
not so much it's a habit, but probably for me, it's probably making sure that you get your balance, whether it's your daily balance or your life balance, in order.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have my balance in order, i.e., I haven't achieved something by the end of the day, then it'll probably weigh on my mind a little bit.
Right.
So
Can
whether
you
it's
give me
around,
an example?
yeah, whether it's around work, person. Well, if I come back to my own stuff, like I'm obviously in the fitness industry, so I like to practice what I preach.
Mm-hmm.
I don't run most days. So if I've had a really busy morning in the gym and I'm just cooked and I need a bit of a rest,
Mm-hmm.
then yes, it's important to have a rest. But for me, the way my mind works is I've still got to get that run in.
Mm-hmm.
It helps me mentally.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't get that in or I don't prioritize it, then I think not necessarily that day, but if that accumulates over 2 or 3 days, then that will become a negative for me. So for me, I've just got to make sure that I get my balance, my work-life balance, always in order. And it's not that hard to do for me. I've got a bit of flexibility in my days, but it's just prioritizing things. So I guess the message would be is that, you know, work out what's really important to you and what helps you feel good about yourself, and just make sure you always prioritize those things, whether it's, you know, putting aside half hour or 10 minutes, whatever it might be, just to try to make sure you leave enough time for you.
Mm.
And that's where, yeah, and I'm pretty good at it, I'll be honest, but like that's because I have a fair bit of flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if I don't do it, then I don't always feel like I've completed my day, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
So is the habit that doesn't align when you feel like your priority is a little bit out of whack, or is the habit that doesn't align with you that you feel harder on yourself than you
Yeah.
should?
Yeah. My priorities are important. But I think your mindset's almost just as important as
Mm-hmm.
well, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, priorities are one thing, but just make sure that those priorities don't outweigh what's really important to you individually as
Mm-hmm.
well. We
Mm-hmm.
all have priorities. You know, you've got a family as well. Sometimes your own priorities can be pushed down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's really important to you, you just got to make sure you try to find time for it as well.
Yeah, I think the word balance is problematic because we think it needs to be even. You
Yeah.
know, like if you think of a seesaw, balance means that either side is at the same plane.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, I almost prefer the word kind of integration. Like, you know, sometimes some things will be up, sometimes some things will be down. That's okay. But how are you planning if that's something that's not desirable for you, that you know you sometimes don't prioritize the run and then that has a flow on effect into the rest of your day?
Yep.
How are you looking at overcoming that as a bad or as an undesirable habit?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a bit of a doer, so I'll make the time, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And those first couple of days, I might not have made it a priority for me, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, if it got to the point where it was becoming pretty important, then yeah, I just make time. That's just how I do things, you know. Um, I hear a lot of people talk about I don't have time,
Mm.
don't have time to do this, don't have time to do that. Well, there's always time.
Yeah.
And this is not. I'm not saying this is easy, but the old saying, there are 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
So you just make time. I don't think anyone's always that busy. So it's just about prioritizing what's important.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you get really busy in life, then things do waver. You know, things do get lost.
Mm-hmm.
Every day throws curveballs. Not every day, but some days throw curveballs. So
Yeah.
I guess the other message today is just don't get too caught up in it. But it's just for me, I like to make sure that I still stick to my routine as best as I can.
Yeah. Well, and I'm interviewing you as a person here and
Yeah.
asking you as an individual, not so much you as a trainer, because I know that messaging might be slightly different. You know, you don't want to give somebody, you know, disordered exercise habits or eating habits to say, you know, you must absolutely prioritize this every day or your day is going to fall to whatever. But
Yeah.
it seems as though for you, that's an important, you know, habit to prioritize in.
Yeah,
Um,
It is. And it's not like it's the world's not going to end if it doesn't happen, but just for me to feel really good about myself. Like I'm not that, yeah, oh, if I don't do this, well, I can't sleep tonight. It's not like that. It's just,
No, but it's you'll have a better day if you do. That's
yeah,
probably
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Especially when you yeah, when there's so much can go into your day.
Hmm.
Just always try to find time for yourself. Always.
Yeah.
That's one of my big things.
Yeah, yeah. And it's probably a good message for parents in particular to schedule that in before you get
Yeah.
reactive to everybody else's needs. That's why I know I'm lucky enough to get to the gym early in the morning because that's when nobody else needs me. And so, that's priority. So that'd be, a system for me to make sure that, they say you can tell somebody's priorities by looking at their calendar and their bank account. And you think about that, what you spend your
Yeah,
money
yeah,
on and
okay.
where your time goes in
Yeah.
a day. If you were
Yeah.
to block out every hour and where your time goes, that pretty much is a pretty good illumination of someone's
Yeah.
priorities. So I think,
How often do you hear, oh, I'm too busy?
yeah, all the time, all the
All
time.
the time. It's just what we do as human nature. Oh, I'm too busy.
Yeah,
Yeah, you just gotta take a step back sometimes and just think, okay, well, where can I fit this in? If it's
yeah,
if it's really important to you, of course.
yeah, yeah. Within within reason and within life constraints, as you say.
Correct. Yeah.
Um, all right, Shane. So now let's talk more about your role as a personal trainer. So why is mindset and then the subsequent habits that come out of that mindset around exercise so important?
Is this the message I'm sharing to prospective clients or members?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, this could go all day, Breezer. I think
In-
number one is your health, clearly. And when I talk about health, I talk about your physical health and your mental health. Um, I say this to a few people. When I started at the gym, going way back with a few mates, it was just to build up, get a bit stronger,
Mhm,
muscle. So it was all about physical health.
mhm,
I couldn't remember even the term mental health being used
mm,
back then. So that's been the big shift, I reckon, in the last 5 to 10 years,
mhm,
is how important our health is. And there's probably been a lot of research on it as well,
mhm,
how important how important training is for your mental health.
mhm,
And the science backs that up. So that's, I guess, when people walk in, or the message that I always share with to members is that this is important to you because it's going to make you feel better about yourself.
mhm,
And it's going to give you, I talk about balance, it's going to give you more balance in your day. But if you're feeling like I guess, things are getting on top of you,
mhm.
and just coming here for 40 minutes a day will help you feel a lot better about yourself, and it'll maybe help you perform those tasks through the day a little bit better as well.
Mm,
I always say to people, our goal is to help you, is to feel better when you walk out the door than when you first walk in.
yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of exercise, is it gives you it's that natural drug, it's that endorphin release. And as you know, training with us, we train in a group environment. So,
Mhm,
it's training around like-minded people and having conversations, and, all that's part of the experience.
mm,
But yeah, just by lifting weights or jumping on a machine, and getting a sweat up and getting your heart rate up, it's going to naturally help you feel better about yourself.
mhm.
Maybe not in the moment, especially if you're doing a hard, cardio effort or something. But
Stupid assault bike.
yeah,
Yep.
or your favorite
My
machine.
favorite. Yep.
Um, but you always walk out feeling like you've achieved something for the day,
Yeah, there's no question.
and then hopefully that will flow on for the rest of the day. So that's one thing I always talk about, especially with new members, is that you're doing this for you. If the reason you do it is to just feel better because you're feeling a bit sluggish, or you just got no energy, or you want to lose a bit of weight,
Mhm,
and you're in the right place. So just taking that first step through the doors is the most important one. And then, we've tried to create an environment I might be going on a bit of a tangent here, but we've tried to create a bit of an environment where everyone feels welcome. I think that's the key to exercise, is that, you've got to find a place where you look forward to going to. And then it helps
yeah.
you.
There's that so and I would attest as a member, and then I'm sure everybody else would say the same thing, that that's mission accomplished. But I remember Lauren saying, trying to use her Lauren, not Lozzie, Lauren saying, when I first started, and probably in a few different contexts, like just come in the door and we'll take care of the rest. And I think that's
Yeah,
really helpful because
yeah,
so much that feels big or that feels overwhelming, particularly if you're starting in a new exercise habit or a new environment, is actually about getting yourself there. So it is just taking that kind of first step, and then things will become clearer once you get in there. And as you
yeah.
say, if you just lock in for 40 minutes, it's such a short amount of time to walk out and go. And you never say, I wish I didn't go. You
Nah,
always say, I'm so
yeah,
glad I got up and went. So yeah, I
yeah.
think that's such a powerful message, and I'm glad the research has sort of emphasized this in recent years, that that endorphins boost the cortisol, the actual hormones that are activated after a workout will make you feel better, and then therefore
Yeah,
attract a better day. I know if I leave the gym in the morning, I'll go to the coffee shop, I'm nicer to the barista. I come
yeah,
home, I'm calmer with my kids. I feel more positive about my work that day, and it's simply because I've moved my body
yes.
before starting all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It really is a beauty of exercise. It could be just getting outside and going for a walk and getting in the
Mhm.
fresh air. Catching up with a friend. It's the beauty of exercise. It really is. And I feel like life is a lot busier now. Maybe because we're now parents and we've got kids and we're chasing around kids, but I feel like life is so much more busier now. And that's what I get from people when I talk to them as well.
Mm.
But it becomes even more important to do find that 30 to 40 minutes a day,
Mm.
because then that'll help you with those tasks that you got to get through.
Mhm.
And if you don't do that, then I just find everything else seems to be a little bit harder.
Mm.
You know, when you haven't actually found a little bit of time just for yourself for the day, I just find like everything else can kind of get on top of you a little bit quicker. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You
we're
might also bring a sense of resentment, to things, because all of a sudden everyone else's priorities, or everything else that's piling on your
yeah,
plate takes
yeah,
precedence.
potentially,
Yeah.
potentially. So that's probably one thing we're really proud of, is that we can provide a place where people that are just as busy as us can come in and just um, not just get that release, but get fit and strong at the same time,
Mm.
which getting back to your physical health is going to help you immensely.
Mm.
Like the benefits of doing weight training are just endless.
Mm.
I'm talking about my parents, and they're getting a little bit older, and it's harder than for them to get around. So, if we can slow that process down by continuing lifting weights and building lean muscle, and
Mm.
it can only help your posture as you get a bit older, and things like that, getting around. So that's one thing that we always need to keep front of mind as well, is that although you don't want to look too far in the future, you still want to make sure that your quality of life can be for as long as it can be. So I think you learn a little bit from the past. Exercise wasn't a real thing when my parents were growing up. I don't know
Mm.
about, but mum would play a few games of netball, but that was it.
That's true. That generation didn't necessarily have like a regular exercise habit, did they?
No, not really. Not the way it is now. I mean, there's so many options now, which is
Mm.
which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I think the percentage of people that exercise now would be right up there compared to what it was 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because you guys do fitness training with younger people, younger kids and teens and that sort of thing as well. I think it's more prevalent for us who are kind of middle age and older to think about us as elderly, mature people in the world, and
Yeah,
needing to get around and carry shopping bags and,
yeah,
lift things and be able to be functional, because
yeah.
it feels closer to us. But you look at the kids and you think, when you're a teenager, that as if you
No,
would care,
no,
so
exactly
i
right.
think i think that's so interesting, though, that the mindset for different age groups of people might
Yeah.
be slightly different. But certainly what you guys are able to do is set up an environment for wherever you happen to be,
Hmm.
in that kind of journey of life, in chronology of life, really,
Yeah.
and get what you need then, and then hopefully in the future as well.
Yeah, and we love that. We love it. Even just yesterday, I trained a hubby and wife, and their boys now on school holidays, so he came down and trained with them.
Yeah, that's so
That's
good.
that's probably my most enjoyable part of the job is that
Yeah.
as a result of those parents training, they're creating
Mm.
healthy habits without them even knowing,
Yeah. What great
creating healthy
modeling.
habits for their families. And
Yeah.
they like
Yeah.
this young boy who trained yesterday, he wouldn't train by himself. Like he
Mm.
would go and do it, but maybe in a few years when he gets a little bit older, he will. But he's creating those habits earlier on because of what his parents are doing.
Yeah, that's so
Uh,
great. And also, habits will only stick when they become part of your identity. So if that's part of the identity of his family, if that's kind of the fabric of his family, then
yeah,
he's going to be the odd one out if he doesn't do it. So it'll be unusual if he doesn't value fitness rather than, him
yeah,
being the unusual one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's spot on, bro. Yeah, it's and that's we use this quite a little bit. Fitness is for the whole family.
Mm.
It's something you can do together as a family.
Yeah.
It's not just the gym, it's jumping on the bikes, going for a ride. It's something you can always do as a family. And
Mm.
and it's number one, it creates a positive experience for your family. So
Mhm.
come home from a day out on the bikes and that was a great day.
Yeah.
So, it's a good thing for your family, but from a health perspective, it's also massively beneficial. So yeah, it's something that we didn't really focus on that at the start, but it's kind of evolved over
Yeah,
time.
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Probably as your girls have grown and you've sort of seen them and their peers and what they've needed at different times as well, you've
yeah,
sort of evolved with that. So yeah,
yeah,
I think the gold standard with young people, I would imagine, is helping them understand exercise that's also fun and giving them experiences. So if it is a bike ride or if it is, getting out, do some water sports or whatever that happens to be active but also happens to be really good for them and then they feel that rush, then you
yeah.
want them to be motivated to do it themselves rather than come on, get out, you haven't that
Yeah.
messaging, which isn't, because that's not their identity, so you want to be able to support that.
Oh, no doubt. And you nailed it. It has to be fun. It has to be an experience. Otherwise, they're not going to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, same thing for adults though, isn't it?
yeah,
You wouldn't have people at the gym if they didn't enjoy going,
no, that's right.
or at
Yeah.
least a few aspects of it, maybe not every aspect, but
Oh, of
there's
course. Enjoyment's huge. And that's,
even if it's just the people that you enjoy being with while you do the exercise you don't enjoy so much, there's going to be an element that
yeah,
needs
yeah,
to be meaningful for you.
yeah, yeah. And like a goal achieved together is a lot better than, or a lot more beneficial or rewarding if you're achieving it by yourself. So doing something is a lot more enjoyable. And
Mm.
that's group fitness,
Yeah, it's true.
fitness. So yeah, so that's kind of always been our goal is to make sure people enjoy the experience, have a
Hmm.
positive experience. And as you said, what Lauren said, like just walk through the door,
Yeah.
we'll look after you. There's your board, there's your trainer. Half the guys are half asleep most of the time anyway. So we just off you go, keep it simple and
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about weight training, which, and I'd like to unpack that a bit more. But what is fundamental to include weight training and otherwise in a fitness program? And I want to know, how is that different, if it is different for people who are just starting out compared to people who have got a bit of a routine embedded exercise habit?
yeah, yeah. So if I use an example of someone's been there 5 years and someone that's just joining up for their first time,
Mm-hmm.
clearly the way they train is going to be very different.
Mm-hmm.
They might do the same exercises, but the weights that the 5 year person will use will be a lot different to the person just starting out. And that's why I'm really big on making sure that if you go to gym and you're new to gym, go to a group fitness facility first or do some PT first
Mm-hmm.
so you know exactly what you're doing, you do it
Mm-hmm.
safely. So yeah, so getting back to your question, our programming will stay the same, but I would ensure that they are lifting a weight that is appropriate for them. Number one, they're not going to injure themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, something where they're not going to be that sore they don't want to come back.
Mm.
Really important. Like they're going to be a little bit sore. That's just part of exercise when you
Yeah.
first. But explain to them that well, it's not a process. I don't like using that word process, but it's going to take time to get you from where you are now to where you want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the 5 year person, well, they're already at a point where if they've been training with us for 5 years, they're going to be really fit and strong. So I always want to make sure that I'm challenging them to continue to see what they're capable of. You know, whether it be on a cardio effort or the weights. You know, let's pick up a little heavier weight this week or whatever it might be. So they're the main differences. The program will be very similar, but the weights they use and the intensity that they train at will be very different. And that's where supervised training is really important. Really important. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
It does. Yeah, it does definitely. So is there equal weighting on importance to weight training and cardio? Is it okay to focus on one sometimes the other sometimes?
Yeah. Weight training, if I had to, let's say I had a choice, you know, and clearly you'd never want to have a choice. I had to pick one, sorry. Hopefully that never happens. But if I had to pick one, you'd always choose weight training.
Okay.
Because of the benefits that will give you during your session, but also after your session. Spoke a little bit earlier about the benefits of weight training, you know, building lean muscle, helping your posture, functional things like you spoke about, you know, shopping bags, things like that. All those things become easier when you've actually got a good level of lean muscle mass, like you feel strong and you're able to do things functionally. So weight training is paramount. You know, you have to lift weights, whether it's body weight training, like push-ups. So that's still resistance training. It's still a form of training. But yeah, ideally you'll always have some dumbbells or a barbell or something you can add resistance to over time. Your muscles will get used to, and your body will get used to, you know, you lifting 4 kilo weights. You know, you have to adapt over time to get stronger. So yeah, weight training for longevity and quality of life is really, really important.
Okay.
And cardio is, don't get me wrong, like I love cardio, and cardio is just important for your respiratory system, so your heart, your lungs, things like that. But you can go out for a walk or you can go for a jog and you can get those things done.
Okay.
A little bit easier outside of the gym. But yeah, still really important. Yeah, still really important. And we'll always prioritize it because physically it's really good for you. But I think mentally, having a challenge like jumping on the ski or jumping on the bike and just challenging yourself, although it's hard, I think that release of that endorphin will help your mindset as well and help you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
The main thing around the cardio for us, although it's important from an overall health perspective, I think from a mindset and just being able to achieve that is also important.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't pre-warned you about this question, so I'm just going to throw you under the bus, but you can take that.
Yeah.
We didn't pre-talk about anything around nutrition. I know, being a member of 3E, we're very anti-diet, you know, rising above kind of fad stuff. But you've spoken about what's integral in an exercise program and the mindset that, you know, will help that. What is the role of nutrition? Like, what's the messaging that you like to give new members and current members around nutrition?
Really important, number one. And it does depend on your goals a little bit as well. So I'll answer this in two parts. If you come in and your goal is to lose a little bit of weight or lose a little bit of, I don't talk about much, I prefer to talk about body fat. Then your nutrition has to be at the top of your to-do list.
Okay, so it needs to be a priority.
Yeah, there's an old saying, and I don't know if I believe it this much, you can't out-train a bad diet.
Bad diet, yeah.
And that quote's it's been going for years and years, that quote. And it's definitely in part true. If I go to the gym 5 times a week and I train my butt off, you know, I just train the house down, but then I come home and it's fast food for dinner every night, then I'm not going to achieve my goals.
Okay.
It's much as simple as that. And the reason that's the case is that different foods have different nutritional value. So fast food, if I generalize, is generally really high in calories, really high in fats and carbohydrates. And it will be hard if your goal is weight loss or fat loss, it's really hard to burn that off or to to, your calorie balance will be way out of whack
Right.
if you ate fast food most nights. So yeah, so nutrition is really important if you're on that journey
Yes.
because your calories matter, and we don't talk about calories that much, but they do matter if your goal is to lose a little bit of fat
Body
loss.
fat. Yep.
Really important. So it has to be front of mind. And we've got a process or a focus the way we do focus on nutrition, and it tends to work. It's not too strict. Now, if you're just there for general health, then it's just as important. But we always want to make sure we do have the keyword balance, make sure we've got a little bit of balance in our diet as well. It has to be sustainable.
Yeah.
So I like to use the 80-20 rule. So at the end of the time, I'm eating a diet that's really nutritious. So, high in protein. So, lean meats, seafood, some carbs, of course, but a really well-balanced diet. Veggies, and then always leave a little bit. Everyone's got their favorite snack, treats, ice cream,
Friday. Yep.
glass of wine. Don't ever cut that out. Don't, unless it's obviously paramount to your health and it's no good for you. Then you've got to make sure that you leave things in there that you look forward to. Otherwise, you're going to start really regretting that process that you started, around your diet, and you won't stick to it.
Right.
So 80-20 rule is probably our big thing. 80% of the time you eat really well, 20% of the time don't. And then it's something that's probably more sustainable. So yeah, really important nutrition. And what else nutrition is? It's energy. You're going to feel a lot better about yourself and have more energy in the day if you have a diet that's nutritious. If you have, I don't know, it might be a smoothie for breakfast or some oats with some protein powder. That's going to give you more energy than a bowl of Cocoa Pops or, one of those high sugar cereals. So, so it's pretty big nutrition. I understand that there's a lot of misconceptions about nutrition and everyone's trying to sell you something out there. There's a lot of marketing and, they try to, I guess, get you to buy something based on the marketing. Doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be good for you. So just always try to speak to someone that you think know what they're talking about around nutrition because it can be a bit of a minefield, but it is important.
Yeah.
It is important.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. That's really helpful. Do you still advocate for, if we are looking at like macronutrients and having, a judicious balance of protein, good fats, carbohydrates, that you would track, using something like MyFitnessPal or another app?
We do, especially if you've got no idea around the nutritional value of food. And not many people do. We don't read food labels, you just go and, and buy things and I guess believe in the marketing and that sort of stuff. So we do, yeah. If we've got someone that comes in that their goal is to drop some body fat, then we always recommend they do jump on. We use MyFitnessPal. It's an app where you can actually track your food and you know exactly what you've had for the day by the end of the day. There's no guesswork. So it takes the guesswork out of it.
Right. So it's more about the education for yourself and setting up the habit rather than living and dying by the numbers long term.
Correct. Spot on. And as you just said, it's an educational tool. So I like to say to people, listen, I want you to do this for 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, and learn about the foods you're having. And you might surprise yourself on the nutritional value of those foods, mainly because of how they're being marketed. And we also suggest that when you go to the supermarket, just go as right as you can, because generally that's where all the fresh produce is and the fruit and veggies and the protein. Try to stay away from the middle aisles.
The middle aisles, yeah, that's such an easy hack.
The package, they'll put the staple foods right at the back where it's
that's right.
So yeah, try to limit your packaged food as much as you can and buy fresh food as much as you can. There's no nasties, there's nothing hiding in those fresh foods.
Unprocessed foods, yeah. I think and something certainly I've learned recently is to that idea of just paying attention to what your body likes, and that it doesn't have to follow, in terms of energy. For me, it's sometimes I feel like something really hearty at 4 p.m., and that's okay. Like, you don't have to wait until 6:30 because that's traditionally dinner time.
Yeah.
So why would I have like a small snack and then a big dinner? Like, so even just for me, it's about getting those macronutrients in, but the time of day isn't as relevant as maybe I thought the routine needed to be. And that's just the way we're kind of raised, I think, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
But I just find, particularly now that we're working flexibly and that, things have to fit in where they fit in, it's really freeing, I find, as you say, the 80% is there, to have a bit of freedom to listen to what your body wants at that time.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Like, some people don't even have breakfast. They wake up in the morning and they just don't feel like breakfast, and that's fine. I mean, your body's going to need some food. Like I said before, that's your energy to get through the day, amongst other things. But some people just don't feel like eating in the morning, so their first meal will be mid-morning or even lunch.
Mid-morning, yeah.
And that's as long as you can still get enough good food across the day to provide you with those energy requirements, and you feel good about yourself. But you do work it out. If you're feeling sluggish, then you'll make some changes to your diet, things like that. But getting back to the tracking, I know it's a little bit subjective, but we only do it initially, as you mentioned, more about the education. We try to teach people about the nutritional value of food, and then help you make smarter choices down the track.
Yeah.
A good tool. I would never recommend someone staying in it for 12 months or so. Unless they want to, and it doesn't affect their mindset, that's fine. But it's not something that I don't think you'd want to do forever. But just initially, it's just such a great educational tool, to teach you something you thought might have been really good for you. Okay, or maybe it wasn't that good for me. Maybe I've got to cut back on that. We've never been about cutting things out. Just cut back on things and just get that balance right. So
yeah, that's really helpful. So we are getting towards the end of the year, emerging into a new year. There's going to be a lot of new year, new me messaging around. I read a stat yesterday, and this was an American study, but I wouldn't think Australians would be too far off, that if you make a New Year's resolution, that 92% of people have fallen off the wagon, so to speak, by the end of January. So if we would always want people to live a healthy life for all the reasons that we've talked about in this interview already, if that was somebody's goal, to start an exercise habit, and that it wasn't part of their tendencies at the moment, what do you think would give them the best chance of making that sustainable? So past January 30, 31.
I think you just said the key word. It has, when you set, let's call it a goal. Yeah, a lot of people call New Year's resolutions. Let's call it a New Year goal. It has to be sustainable. Like, it has to be something that you think that you can do daily, over weeks, months, maybe for the rest of the year. I think what happens with New Year's resolutions, a lot of people, and this is probably a lot of them fail, is they set these outlandish goals that just aren't achievable, and then all of a sudden, oh, well, that's too hard.
Right.
So they stop doing it. So as an example, it might be, I want to run a marathon by March. Okay.
Yeah.
We're now in January. They've never run it. That running's not their thing. They're just
So it's just a crazy
the first week,
just a bonkers suggestion to make.
Yeah, and that's like it's great that they're coming up with these options, and they want to change their life for the better. But if it's not achievable, then it's just not going to happen, and they end up just falling off the waffle. So again, so it's a marathon. If you want to do a marathon by March, and then you go out and your first run is 20 kilometers, something crazy like that. Number one, you might injure yourself, and you're probably going to hate it. And then, oh no, this is too hard.
Yeah, right. Okay. So it's that all or nothing.
Yeah, I think that's what happens a lot with resolutions, is that, I don't know why it's a thing. It's just this start of the year thing. And maybe that's something to do with the fact that it has to be this big thing. So break it down, make it achievable. It might be joining a gym, or just trying a gym for the first time. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. That's the worst thing you do in life, is put too much pressure on yourself, because then, when it doesn't go the way you want it to go, you just stop. It just becomes too hard. So, yeah, write things down. Like if you want to call New Year's resolution, write down small achievable goals and then break it down from there. Okay, how am I going to achieve this goal? Don't just say it's like words are nothing without action. So you actually got to act on those words. So, how can I achieve this? Is it okay? I got to do this, this, and this, or do I go and talk to someone and ask them for help? There's nothing wrong with leaning on someone either and asking for help. Come to a gym, and if it's more around fitness, and how can I help you? Those sort of things. But yeah, that's probably the main reason they fail, Breezy, is because
It's unrealistic.
they don't put parameters around it. It's like,
Yeah, okay. So it's got to be specific. It's got to be realistic.
be realistic.
You've got to have support in place. So you might need,
Yep.
say, it's a particular weight you want to be able to bench press or deadlift or whatever. You backwards map that. So if you write that down, and then maybe it's about talking to someone like you guys and saying, what would it take week by week for me to be able to build to that?
Yep. How am I going to achieve it? Yeah. It's a big difference between just saying it and actually doing it. Like, yeah. So I reckon it's awesome that they're actually having that thought process is there.
Yeah. We can't poo-poo resolutions in the, like people wanting to be better and feel better and,
100%.
and live a better life. That's admirable. It's about what would be the best course of action to give them the best chance of success. Is it reasonable? It's just come to be now in this chat that we would expect 80%, the 80-20 rule, that in the same as with the resolution, that it's okay if you fall off the wagon 20% of the time, as long as 80% of the time the consistency's there.
For sure. Like, like every day's not the same. Like life will throw curveballs at you. So there might be a day where you don't necessarily achieve what you want to achieve, but don't let that affect you, get back on the bike the next day. We talk to our members all the time about that sort of stuff, is that, if you didn't get to gym the amount of times you wanted to get to last week, then that's last week, focus on next week,
Reset.
What can change for next week? And if it doesn't work next week, then try the following week. And when it's still not working, then maybe there's some things you got to change,
Yeah, so that I'm glad you said that. So is there a role of like self-reflection in that as well? Like, if it wasn't that you had a bad week, if it wasn't that you were traveling for work or your kids were sick or something, and a couple of weeks or a few weeks go by and you're just not quite getting there, is it then a matter of going, okay, what actually is it that's standing in my way here?
Yeah, potentially. And if you don't then act on it, then it's probably not going to change. You're not going to get to achieve what you want to achieve. We have a lot of members that, every now and then they'll come to us and say, I'm just not getting in. I just can't get in. I haven't got the time. And like our responsibility, well, how can you make time?
Yeah.
Like, has your life changed that much that you just can't get in, or deep down, is that a bit of an excuse?
Yeah.
You're not prioritizing it and you just use it as an excuse. So you got to sit down and, I guess, ask those questions of yourself or talk to your family about it. How can I ensure I don't fall off this wagon, or I can, I'll set this resolution or this goal for a reason. It's obviously really important to me. How can I make sure I stick to it? Because life does throw curveballs at you. It's not always easy. But if it's really important to you, then you'll generally make time. But don't hold it in. Like, talk to people about it. Like, that important to you. Like, talk to someone about it. Like,
I'm struggling with this. Yeah.
There's nothing better than talking. Like, it's going to help so much. And that's why this podcast you're doing is so important. Like sharing habits and things that are going to help others. Because it's not until you actually talk about things sometimes okay, maybe I'll try that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's certainly one of my goals, open up conversations. And so you said something else then that I wanted to pick up on. I hadn't thought of it before. No, it'll come back to me. Talking about it. So what is the role? So there's science behind this idea of social proximity. I know there are certain days that I don't want to go to the gym. I've had a really late night, but I know that people at the gym will be thinking, where's Bree? And so there's something about that. And maybe if it's one day, it's okay. But if it's a few days,
Yep.
and it's lovely to have a community where people reach out by text and say, are you all right? Or are you, and sometimes it's with me that I'm interstate for work, or that, I am unwell or whatever, but I'm not just lying in bed being lazy. But the fact that people miss you being somewhere that's that idea that even if nothing else gets you there, somebody is expecting you to be there. So I just think I think that is underrated, whether you would call those people friends or not, or whether they're just a common group that share an interest in something that you do. I think that idea that community, and so whether it's group fitness or whatever it is, where you're alongside other people, just whatever habit you're trying to build just will have so many benefits.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the strength of our business and always has been. It's always been about the community. Like, community within the fitness industry is a bit of a buzzword now. Like, everyone, this is our community. I feel like, if I can say, I feel like we're like the OGs of the community.
Yeah, absolutely, the OGs.
Right, we and it wasn't a word we just used because it was a cool word. We actually have a really cool community.
Yeah, no question.
And I find that that's how those places generally work. Like, if you don't fit in or you're not like-minded, then it's probably not for you, and we're for everyone. But people will ask about you because they generally care. So you're walking into an environment where people care, then that's going to make you feel good about yourself. You get that all the time. Like,
yeah,
you're not just saying this. People will say, oh, where's Bree?
Yeah.
Because they know that you're normally there on a Monday or a Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the case for a lot of people because they generally care. And we've been really lucky, and this is a lot to do with Lauren as well, is that we actually, we've always had good people come and join the gym with us. Like, it's always been inviting for those sort of people. And I hope that's because we've always tried to create an environment where it's not intimidating, like it's a place where people do feel welcome, and they come from different backgrounds, and you don't have to be able to deadlift 100 kilos or whatever it might be. You walk in and you'll feel welcome, and we're so grateful for everyone that they make people feel like that. I don't know how many gyms we just walk in and would people just say welcome. Oh, how you going? I haven't seen you before. Is this your first class? Do you need a hand with this? Like, sometimes I'll just step back and say, oh, look at this.
Yeah.
Like, just
We're making you redundant.
Yeah.
No, but I also don't think it's about putting pressure on yourself when you start somewhere new that you need to make friends with everybody. It's just that idea that it's a welcoming environment, but I just want people to understand that working out or doing any new habit alongside like-minded people is always going to help it be more sustainable. Whether you would call them a friend outside or whether you even have anything in common with them outside of that activity, that's actually beside the point. It's the fact that you're doing something. It's like team sport. You're doing something alongside a collective. And I just think that's kind of an unsaid thing when we're setting habits, that idea of community can be really sometimes a game changer, whether you're successful or not.
No doubt. And like, Lauren and I are obviously heavily involved in sport and have been since we were kids. So we always wanted to create like a team environment through it, or bring some of those, I guess, those
principles across.
That makes a great team.
Yes.
And what makes a great team is that is people being supportive, and encouraging and making you feel welcome and things like that. So you're right. You don't have to be best friends, but you do know that when you turn up, you're walking into an environment where you can have conversations with people, and it's not just about the weight you lift. There's other benefits that come with it. So that's always been massive for us as a business. It's probably been able why we've been able to, continue to do what we do for so long. Especially as the market's become a lot more saturated, but it's always been our strength.
What sets you apart? Yeah,
people. And that has never changed. It's funny. It works like, someone can walk in tomorrow and they'll feel the same way that someone's been there 10 years.
Yeah.
That's always been a thing. But I think that is also the beauty of group fitness. And that's why it's a successful model as well, is but a lot easier to train with a group of people and go to the gym by yourself. It's a lot easier. More accountability without you even knowing it. Like you said before, that people are probably thinking, oh, where is Bree? Or,
Mm,
done so. Well, subconsciously you're thinking like that.
absolutely.
You don't get that feeling if you just go into a gym by yourself.
No, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what would turn me off going to a gym by myself, truly, because
Yeah.
sometimes I got to be honest, as much as I enjoy it when I get there, it's hard to get there. So,
Yeah.
sometimes if that's all that gets me through the door, and that includes you and Lauren as well. It's not just, your co-training people, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah, I just think it's a good message for all of us about, that idea of being alongside people that like the same things or that are connected in some way will, really lead to sustainable habits. It's like anything, when you make it easy enough for kids to brush their teeth alongside their brother or sister at the same time, it's more likely to happen. So it's just kind of that routine alongside making it easy alongside, other people doing the same thing at the same time. So
Yeah. It just gets back to the title of your podcast, right? Like habit, the habit, like it's creating habits, and there's a lot of things that help you create that habit. It's your own well-being, it's the people around you, all those things help you form habits.
yeah, the theme I hope listeners will get is that the reason I've called it the habit nerd is obviously because I've got a research background, but there are no kind of hard and fast rules around. There's this methodology that like a new habit takes 33 days to embed or 66 days to
Yeah,
embed.
yeah,
It's actually, I mean, there is research into that, but it's actually more about all of the things coming together. So that's why I'm sort of interested in talking to people like you who have got experience in helping people embed habits so that we can layer that real life experience onto what the science does or
yeah,
doesn't say. So, and I just, 33 days is way too much for someone and it's not enough for someone else. And that's fine because your habit might be something that's really far from the way you're used to behaving, or it might be just a small tweak. And so, therefore, those two things aren't
mm,
equal, so it's not helpful to say, okay, 33 days, because 33 days might get there and you might still be really struggling. And that's okay too, because for some people, it's going to take longer. And some people would have kind of hit the ground running after 10 days. So,
and wouldn't that also vary? So depending on what your habit is, wouldn't it vary or depend on your environment as well?
exactly,
So yeah, that's the other thing, isn't it?
which
So
is exactly why,
yeah,
exactly why, and that's what I just said, the context of people telling stories around this is the way it works in my environment with these conditions, with these people, with these,
mm,
you've said a few times that you're lucky, and I mean lucky is a relative word, to be flexible enough to be able to, design your day.
yeah,
Other people, that wouldn't be lucky for them because they need to be really structured and routine driven and
right,
have, a 9 to 5 job or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
But it's just an example of how you as an individual have made habits work for your individual circumstance with all those factors. And
yeah,
therefore, research and science can give us something, but it can't give us everything. So that's why,
yeah.
for me, unpacking these conversations are really
Yeah, okay,
powerful.
yeah, it's really good. Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah,
All right, Shane. Now, I'm not going to keep you too much longer.
yep.
You've been so generous with your time already. Is there any final messages you'd like to leave our Habit Nerd audience with to help them lead a remarkable life? We've covered a lot of ground already, but is there anything we haven't said?
Um, yeah, probably more. I think I touched on it earlier, but if I'm talking around looking after yourself from a physical and a mental health perspective,
Mhm.
uh, just make sure you can actually do something that you really enjoy. All right.
Mm.
It's like enjoyment is number one. Like
Yeah.
it's, whether it's, and we spoke a lot about the gym, but find something that you really enjoy doing and you're going to stick to it.
Hmm.
It's a message for your kids as well and my kids
Hmm.
is that enjoyment's number one, and try to create an environment for yourself and others around you where it does become enjoyable.
Mm.
Because if you don't have that, the rest of the stuff just doesn't probably really matter, because it's just work. So, you know, make it, and we spoke a little bit of this, make it fun, make it enjoyable.
Hmm.
Smiling and laughing is underrated.
Hmm.
Like it's contagious. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't sweat the small things. I know the little cliches, but it's really true. And always have a reason behind doing things.
Mm.
There's if you want to get somewhere in life, you got to break things down step by step. But yeah, if you don't do it with a smile on your face, I don't really see what the point is. Because that's what life should be about in my eyes. Make the most of it as much as you can. Yeah, and just you know, love your friends, love your family, like just, like have really good balance in your life. That's probably the main message for me is that don't get bogged down as much as,
Mm,
in the little things in life. Like,
mm,
like always move, always look forward. I think sometimes we get stuck in the past a little bit as
mhm,
well.
mhm.
Always move forward and, look forward to things in life. And that includes going to the gym, Bruiser. Go to the gym,
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I mean, we covered so much ground in that, even that last answer, but I think even if we just go back to the first thing you said about if fun is sort of the main driver,
Mm.
and if you want to, if we could simplify that even more to feeling good, like if it is the goal to
Yep.
feel good and whatever that means,
Yep.
then that is a really powerful motivator for whatever it is that you want to do or that you need to do. Because sometimes exercise for people is about a need. Their doctor said to them,
Yep.
you need to drop some body fat, or, maybe you're pre-diabetic, or maybe there's a cholesterol issue. And, it is suggested that you become more healthy in the way that, exercise would support your body to be. So then it is about feeling good needs to be the goal so that you sustain that habit rather than, as you say, go into it grumbling, oh my God, the doctor said I have to do this. I better
Yeah.
join a gym. I better sit on the bike. I'm so bored by that, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think, just to distill what you said down to its most simple form, feeling good has got to be a great start. And
Yes.
even if it's that you feel good after you're done, to start before before you get those kind of endorphins
Dolphins,
and the memory of wanting to go back and get more of that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's really helpful. And there's also another theory that, like, habits that we don't like, say for example, I don't like doing the ironing.
Yeah.
I will make myself feel good while I'm doing the ironing by watching my favorite TV show or listening to my favorite podcast. Do you know what I mean? So there is always
Yeah.
a way that you can use a form of a reward to make feeling good the priority to even, get through the things that aren't so desirable. So I think that's
Yeah.
really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, that's how I live my life,
Mhm.
and that's how I'm trying to teach my girls as well, is that, um, always set yourself little goals as well, is
Mhm.
that, it helps you stay on track and it helps you want to achieve more as well. Like don't get too bogged down on things. Always try to move forward and, enjoy it while you're doing it. And like and fun's really important as well, but um, always have a strong mindset as well about what you
Mhm.
want to achieve,
Mhm.
not just like fun's great and it has to be fun. Otherwise,
Yeah.
probably won't stick to it, but also don't let that stop you from getting to where you want to get to either.
Yeah, I think the message is fun needs to be what will keep you there. Like that'll make it sustainable. But once you're in it, that,
Yeah. Yeah.
needing to always move forward and kind of have something you're reaching for
Yep.
is sort of, supplementary to that. So yeah, think
Yeah.
that's a great message.
For
All right,
sure.
Shane, with people who want to connect with 3E or with you, how can they do that? Where can they find you?
So probably the best things on the socials.
Mhm.
So Facebook and Instagram, 3D Fitness. Yeah, just send us a message through there, and um, we help everyone. If you're just starting the gym or you're not sure about the gym and you just want a bit more support, then come see us, and we train kids, adults, whole families, young athletes, everyone. So yeah, so there's a spot for everyone, Bree. At
And you
3D.
do, it's probably worth also saying you do group fitness. So, 8, 10 people, but you also do kind of smaller groups if that's
Yeah,
preferable to
yeah,
people
yeah.
too.
So you refer, and some people do. Some people prefer the one-on-one focus or the small group
Mhm.
focus. We definitely do that.
Mhm.
We'll just make a different time. But yeah, if you're someone that's unsure about the gym and unsure about lifting weights, then always come and see us. Always try to go to a group fitness facility first,
Mhm.
where you're supervised, or even some PT sessions,
Mhm.
so you're ensure you're doing things the right way and doing it safely, and ask some questions. Don't go into a gym blind.
Mm.
Ask some questions, wherever it might be. These people are specialised for a reason, so
Mm.
that'll help you, remove that anxiety, I suppose, if you've got
Mhm.
any. I know gyms can be a little bit like that. It can be a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
We're definitely not like that. Some places are. But yeah, just as you said, mate, just walk through the door and we'll look after you. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Shane. That was such a great chat. We've covered a lot of ground. Had some general
Great.
questions, but we went really deep on a few of them. So I know the listeners will gain a huge amount from that. So just want to say a huge thank you for your generosity and all your knowledge today.
No worries. It's a pleasure being on the health. On the habit nerd.
Habit nerd. Get the word right.
Habit
Get the
nerd.
title right.
Yeah, in health. Yeah.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Habit Nerd. I hope you found some new inspiration, learned something new, or gained a fresh perspective. If you did enjoy the episode, I would be really grateful if you could please leave a 5-star review, as it helps the show get in the ears of new listeners, plus it should only take you 5 seconds. If you're keen for more tips and insights, then head over to Instagram and follow Habit Nerd.